And tonight we're so excited to be your MCs. We're also really thrilled to be here live with tonight's Angel of Change honoree, Abby Daré. She is the author of The Girl with the Louding Voice. Hello and welcome, Abby. We're really excited that you're here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Such an honor to be here.
Abby, you've written a gorgeous, poignant, touching forward for Girls Right Now, Unmuted, the 2021 anthology, and we would absolutely love for you to share it with us now.
My pleasure. As a young girl, I was terrified to say what was on my mind. I lived in a muted bubble and sealed it tight with fear. What would people think? I would wonder, before frantically swallowing the words I wanted to say. But this silence, this shoving down of opinions and thoughts and feelings for fear of judgment or of being laughed at, made me miserable. I must have been about 5 or 6 when I discovered my love for writing. I desecrated our family photo album by giving each image speech bubbles and lots of effusive dialogue punctuated by too many exclamation marks. It annoyed my mother, but I was secretly thrilled. I had finally found a way to capture and convey my feelings without opening my mouth. I had found my voice. I embraced writing from then on. I wrote on scraps of paper I found lying around, then glued them together to make a book solely for my own reading pleasure. I wrote on the back of exercise books, creating characters that both terrified and delighted me in equal measure. In secondary school, I wrote terrible plays and forced my friends to act in them while I directed and produced. After I left Nigeria, I struggled to find my place in a society where I looked different, where my ability to speak good English surprised an astounding number of people. I found myself trying to make my writing fit into the expectations that society had created for me. I wrote about characters that had blue eyes and blonde hair and who played lacrosse and attended boarding schools in the Scottish Isles, even though I had no idea what lacrosse was at that time. I probably still don't. The fairy tales I loved also did not feature any characters that looked like me. And so as I wrote my own stories, I subconsciously erased my own existence out of my own narrative. It was tortuous. And it wasn't until I began to read books filled with characters who braided their hair or wore it out in an afro and who lived in Lagos or Ibadan and who ate jollof rice and yams and spoke Yoruba and Hausa, as well as they could speak English, that I realized that I could and should write the stories that my soul wants to write about people that look like me. It was then I began to emerge gloriously liberated from the process. It gives me immense pleasure to present this anthology and to share works from girls who are more courageous and more inspiring than I was at their age. Girls who have decided to use their own voices to tell stories that are relevant and undiluted and authentic. Each word constructed with care and urgency, as if to say, this is my story, told in my own way. Listen. And I hope you will listen. I hope you will experience every remarkable piece, each one written from a particular point of view no one else has, by writers from a myriad of backgrounds and perspectives, whether in the stanzas of poetry that deserve to be memorized and recited, or in prose that is stunning in its beauty. I hope you will hear these unmuted and unafraid voices, and that they would inspire and move you as you turn the last page. I hope you would emerge transformed by the journey and with your heart imprinted with the power of the unforgettable voices in this book. Enjoy every single moment. Thank you.
Wow, what a forward. We just have to give that a clap. That was amazing. Thank you so much for reading that. That definitely deserves some hype. So without further ado, let's get into the Q&A. We'll be able to ask or take a few questions from the audience. So feel free to type them down in the chat, or if you want, you can raise your hand and we'll like you to unmute yourself and ask them out loud. So without further ado, we do have a few questions already. So the first question is, what was your favorite book as a teen?
So my favorite book as a teen was probably some of the Enid Blyton books. So I didn't have one favorite one. I loved reading the Famous Five series, the Mallory Towers series, which is what I referred to when I was writing the forward there about, going to boarding school in England. And I just imagined myself living their world. And even though I didn't see myself in there, I loved reading her novels. They were amazing for me then.
Abby, as you know, we have this incredible gathering of mentors at Girls Right Now. And so have you had a mentor that has really changed your life? Or what has the role of mentoring been for you?
I think mentoring is so critical and so important and can be life-changing. I refer to that in The Girl with the Louding Voice, where one of the characters finds herself with a mentor. But I didn't have a direct mentor. I really looked up to my mother, who was a great inspiration of mine. But I always say that we live in a world whereby you don't necessarily need to know who your mentor is, sort of one-on-one contact, but you can have mentors from afar. So I really look up to ladies like Michelle Obama, who do great things in the field of education, who might not know who I am, but I constantly follow their work and what they do, read their books, and I'm inspired by that. So I think my mentors are probably people that have never met me, but they absolutely greatly inspire me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So the next question is, what kind of research or prep work did you do before or during your writing process? Because I know for me, I wrote a story called Deadly Militia, which was the story of a young girl who was also a child soldier. And I wanted to make sure it was both accurate, even though it was like nonfiction, but I knew it still reflected, the real stories of real girls. So what kind of research did you have to do during your writing process?
I think it depends on what I'm writing. So if I'm writing about a world I'm not very familiar with, maybe in terms of social economic class, I tend to try and speak to people that have lived that life as respectfully as I can to ensure that I'm telling the stories that, can show empathy. But I also I think we live in a world whereby technology has done amazing things. I find a lot of information out there on YouTube, research papers, speaking to people in the field. So if you're writing about, for instance, mental health, speaking to people that work in that field from a sort of medical background, and just asking questions. I think a lot of research for writers comes from things that you don't consciously take in from the world around you that you listen to, from speaking to people, from listening to the news sometimes. So research can come from anywhere, but I try to make it as thorough as I can before I actually get into writing.
So speaking of research, Abby, we did some research on you and we learned from your bio that your daughters inspired your book. And so could you tell us a little bit about what they inspired, how they inspired you? And then as they see you go on, even though it's a digital book tour, but you're very busy with this book tour and they're probably watching you and seeing some of that. What are they thinking of seeing mommy with her book out in the world?
I think they're very proud. I was getting ready tonight. They were like, "You're going out for an event at nearly midnight." So it's great, and I think they sort of appreciate that. One of my daughters is really keen on writing as well. So it's just wonderful that I know it's because she's seen mommy do it, and that's why she thinks she can do it. In terms of what inspired the Girl with the Louding Voice, it was a conversation with my 8-year-old daughter. Then she was 8, and I'd asked her politely to help with the dishwasher, and she was throwing tantrums as they do, not keen on doing the work. And I did say to her then that there were young girls like her who were working for families like ours in Nigeria who were housemaids. And I think what I was trying to do with that conversation was to point out that she had been brought up in a privileged background and that she should appreciate and embrace that and value that and not look down on anyone who wasn't from her own sort of, where she'd come from. So I think that was what I was trying to drive home. But I think that conversation, I think it struck something in my daughter that evening because she did want to ask me about the girls that I had talked about that were housemaids. And so she asked me a question and said, "Mom, why would anyone send their daughter to be a maid?" And I think going to bed that night, I really could not sleep because my question was, why would anyone? What's the story of the girls that I knew growing up that were maids? And so it was that conversation. But so many things about my daughters also inspired the Girl with the Louding Voice, just knowing that they're girls who were born in an environment, they're Black girls, beautiful girls, but they have a lot that they need to stand up for and speak up for. And each time I look at my daughters, I think I have to keep writing stories for girls like them, so that they can grow up and look at the stories I've written and say, because mommy did, I can. So really, they constantly inspire me.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. We also have a question from the audience, and it goes, what was your thought process of adding facts in the beginning of some chapters?
Well, the facts were actually an afterthought. So it wasn't anything I consciously said at the time of writing that I would include those. But I'd finished the novel and I felt that there was something missing in the character's arc, in the journey of the character. I felt that it wasn't natural as a character for Aduni to be in that house and have a library and not be transformed in a way by what she'd come across. I mean, books are transformative, and I wanted that to reflect in Aduni's life. But also, I knew that there was a lot of information out there about Nigeria, and this is about changing the narrative. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of stereotypical information, about the bad, not so much about the good. And I wanted to have a nuanced view of Nigeria shown through the book, through Aduni's eyes. So I thought the best way to do that was to have her discover facts, because she's curious in nature. Have her discover facts but like I said, because I'd written the book, I then had to find facts to retrospectively fit into the theme of the chapter, because there's no way I was going to rewrite those chapters. And so it was a fun experience for me, discovering my country of origin, learning facts that I had to fit into the theme of each of the chapters I'd written. So that's where that kind of came about. And I think I consciously tried to select facts that were balanced, so both the good and the bad, and facts that people might not have heard about, facts that surprised me, I would say, I tried to include as well in those chapters.
Abby, you have this line in the foreword that just, oh my gosh, if I could highlight it a million times, I would. And I'm sure everyone that's read it already has. And it's this line that I realized that I could and should write the stories my soul wants to write. And, if I were to think of a message that we as mentors try to impart on our girls right now, mentees, it's probably that, write the stories that your soul wants to write. And my question is, how do you get to the place, or how did you get to the place where you were in touch with what your soul wanted to write?
I would speak for myself. I mean, the question is to myself, but I think for me, there was a certain restlessness and feeling inauthentic when I was writing stories that were not to do with me in any way, shape, or form. I could not connect with the characters. I felt I couldn't share those stories outside with the world. I felt that the experiences were not real. And so with that, and I think as a writer, especially for me, if I'm not at peace, there's a certain peace I seek in my words and a certain satisfaction that I get. And I think many creatives feel that way. You feel, when you've written from your soul, you feel like you've eaten a fantastic meal and you feel like you're going to be satisfied for the next 10 years. And you do get hungry about later on, but you do feel that way. And I think it was that hunger and that lack of satisfaction that I felt. And then when I began to write stories that were in my authentic voice, characters that spoke like me and thought like me and behaved like me, they had their own motivations, but they were very similar to what I could relate with. I felt full. I felt like I had ingested something tangible and solid, something that was worthy to be shared with the world.
Wow, you just keep answering these questions so amazingly. We also just want to take a little bit of time to give a little shout out to Robyn Crawford, who's here tonight as well. Hi, Robyn. She also wrote a beautiful intro for the book. As mentors, what do you learn from your peers?
From my peers, huh? Well, first of all, I have to say that it was an honor to be asked to write the introduction for this awesome, beautiful book that I have a daughter as well, Abby, and she's 12. And
I'm 12 as well.
And like my daughter says that she's not in theater, she's in the performing arts. And she actually is reading the Iliad today, which I was totally blown away. But just listening to you talk about your story and talk about your approach to writing, and how it feels like a meal because you're writing from your spirit is just lifted. It did blow me away. And you were absolutely right, Emanuela. Just amazing the way you answer the questions with such passion. So congratulations to you. And I hope to see your work on the screen. That's what we need on a series where everyone can meet, our ladies of all colors and countries and nationalities. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. I'm going to try not to cry.
No, I'm going to read your book. I'm definitely going to read it. And I just wanted to say that. And as far as my peers, well, I look up to like Michelle Obama. I've read her book, but then I listened to her book. And she wrote from, that's how I write, from my experiences. I can only write what I've lived. And I hope I continue, coming out of this crazy, maddening year. I'm just grateful to have another shot at things and just being a bit more patient and a lot more kind and empathy. That is the word, empathy and compassion. So my daughter and I are designing t-shirts and it says empathy or compassion. So, I just love reading books where I can just sit down and go into their world, free, open-minded, and willing to learn. So that's my little way, and that's my platform. I'm just humbled by this whole thing. I'm so thankful to Dutton, to Molly, to everyone. I am truly honored to be part and get this book and treasure it for myself and share it with my children.
Robyn, and on behalf of the Anthology editorial committee, we also want to thank you for making this book such a gem. We think the 2021 one is the best one yet, so that we'll just keep getting better. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of this book.
I'm very grateful, believe me. And I wanted to be on with you guys, but Molly, it's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Abby, we have one quick last question before we go to the YouTube part of the show, and that's for our girls and our mentees that are watching. They would love some advice from you on how a young writer can get published.
I think that you're already on your way there. You have put your heart into writing. You've done what millions of people have not been able to do, regardless of age, regardless of the resources they have. You've put your heart and your mind into it. I think that's one of the most important things to have, the resilience, the dogged determination, the feeling of the fear, because you will have fear as you start pursuing that desire to write. But I would say feel the fear, but go ahead anyway. And when you're ready, when your writing is there, because writing does take time. And I believe that for you to have your work in this amazing anthology, I think you're pretty much there. And it's really just sharing your work out, seeking agents, entering into competitions. I got mine through my breakthrough through entering competitions. So there's so many different ways that you can do this. Look online for competitions, share your work there, publish your work out there. There's so many websites that would publish your work, legitimate ones that, editors might be on the lookout for your work. And I'll just say, just keep going and don't give up on your dreams. It took me over 10 years and over 1 million words to get my first novel published. I just never gave up on my dream. So I believe and I know that I will be congratulating you very soon on your work. And I'm already doing that, so more to come.
Bravo.
Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of the mentees on here needed to hear that, even the mentors too, probably. Once again, we want to thank you, Abby, and also thank you, Robyn, for joining us here tonight and capturing the spirit of girls right now in your writings for our book.
Thank you
Oh,
for having me. It's
I'll
such an honor.
be enjoy this evening. It's going to be a blast.
It's such an honor, such an honor. Thank you so much for having me do this. Thank you.